Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Only Stupid Answers. This is the show where we answer your questions about movies, TV shows, comic books, D23s, Doctor Dooms, and so much more. I am your host, DJ Wildridge. With me, as always, is Roxy Stryer. Good morning, Roxy.
Good morning, DJ.
And then we have a very special guest today, joining us once again to talk about the future of the MCU and possible reboots. Mr. Hector Navarro. Hello, Hector.
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for having me back. I appreciate it.
Yes. Oh, man. I'm so excited for this one because literally, I don't know about you all, but when Hector, you were in Hall H, were you not? For this announcement? Okay.
Yeah,
I was far away from I was at home in Hall H. And so I was like, because Roxy and I had recorded our Deadpool and Wolverine review. Mm-hmm. And it was Friday, so it was before any announcement. So I'm like, I'm going to have to see if there's anything important enough to inject into the episode. Like, hey, postscript that this happened. And so I'm making my dinner and I pull up my phone and I see RDJ is returning to the MCU's Doctor Doom. And I was like, is this, because, there's some of those fake news Twitter things. I'm like, I'm so sorry. What? You're lying to me. And then
so that was your first response, is that it was a lie.
Yes. I was like, well, that clearly can't be true.
And then that's so interesting. Why was that your first response? And then when it set in that it was the truth, what was your second response to it, DJ? And then I want to ask Roxy what your response was too, because this is wild to me. This news is insane.
Yeah. Well, we're jumping ahead a little bit, but I'll happily tell you that my first response was like, well, this isn't true. And then I saw it was true. I was like, well, this is bad. This is not what I want. This is not what I wanted from... this is almost the exact opposite of what I want the MCU to be doing, especially having just seen Deadpool and Wolverine. Spoilers, I'm a little burnt out on the whole multiverse concept. I don't think we're doing interesting things with it, and I think I'm okay if we shelve it for a minute.
Listen, Wizard of Oz did it best, and the gays knew it, and we didn't listen.
And we didn't listen.
Linda.
Linda. So I want to later, when we talk more about it, I would like to unpack it. But Roxy, what was your initial response to hearing this news, finding out this news?
DJ, should this be the best tease of all time? And I don't answer right now. Or do you want me to really get into it?
The problem is, Roxy, we talked about this a little bit last week. So for long-time listeners, they already know your initial.
They don't know this.
Okay.
They don't know this.
There's a whole bunch of Hector fans that haven't been listening to the show, and they're coming in now.
Yeah.
And
It's
so
true.
Roxy's using her producer brain. I love that. I would say then, if you want to hold it for the combo later. Because,
I'm telling you, you think, DJ, the people at home know. They don't know how I found out. Because DJ, do you know how I found out?
Oh no, I don't know how you. That's correct. I do not know how you found out. That's true. I know some of your thoughts.
It was the weirdest way possible is how I found out.
I feel like any way other than being in Hall H is the weirdest. It's just you have to
no, but. I feel like Roxy's going to say something like, I found out from a weird Twitter account that's like a furry account or something.
Yeah.
Some weird thing through the algorithm is going to be like, what? This is fake.
Yeah.
And they'll have reported on. It's going to be something like that.
Were you in Hall H with all the Heroes Reforged guys, or was it just you? Cool. Oh my God.
Adam and Augustine. And Augustine is the #1 Doctor Doom fan.
Ooh.
So for a good 60 seconds,
it
was the greatest night of our lives.
For
a good when they were like Doomsday, we were like, it was incredible.
Yeah.
And then Robert Downey Jr. went like this, and then we'll talk about it.
We'll talk about it.
Did you guys know that it was real when he was there? Was there like a DJ factor of this is fake?
Yeah.
There was a DJ factor of this is fake.
Okay.
Yeah.
I sat there waiting for them to take backsies.
Yeah.
I sat there being like, what the hell? Waiting for Robert Downey Jr. to go, I'm just kidding. I am going to be back. I'll be in Secret Wars, but I'm just here to support the Russos, and I'm here to support my friend, the real actor who's playing Dr. Doom, Leonardo DiCaprio, or something. I honestly expected him to step aside and reveal Javier Bardem.
That would have been a cool reveal. That would have been cool.
No, fans would have flipped if they.
I don't know.
People who liked that it's RDJ, and then for him to be like, JK.
There was an interesting thing that happened in 2011, after the first few Avengers films had come out, the first few Marvel characters, I should say, and the Avengers movie, maybe this was in 2010, actually. 2010.
Yeah.
They hadn't started filming Avengers yet, directed by Joss Whedon. Boo, Joss Whedon.
Yeah.
But they brought out the whole cast on that same stage in Hall H, San Diego Comic-Con 2010. This is only after Iron Man 2 had come out.
Yeah.
And we hadn't even seen Captain America or Thor yet. And they brought them all out. And in this announcement, Robert Downey Jr. also took the mic and he said something to the effect of, I'm so happy about this next announcement. He is an actor who's a friend of mine. I'm so excited to be working with him. Show him some love. Mark Ruffalo as Bruce Banner, because they recast Hulk.
Yeah.
And Robert Downey had to be like, okay, Hall H nerds, we like this. Be nice to him. It's not Edward Norton, it's Mark Ruffalo.
Yeah, but he didn't dress as Hulk to announce that.
But he didn't. But yes, and that you're right. And that announcement was like, it felt like it was like, I'm gonna try to like ease the blow a little bit, but we're gonna make this a part of the thing. So I did flash that moment for a half a second when he did this. I was like, is he just easing the blow of it's going to be somebody else?
Yeah.
Or no, he's really Victor Von Doom.
Yeah.
This is really happening.
It's so funny to flash back to 2010 where when I don't think the fervor was anywhere near what it's become, that you had to be like, sorry, gang. You know, that actor that was fine in the movie that you kind of didn't like, don't worry, we have to actually, it's okay, we recast, you know what I mean? Like, you have to prepare people for that, even though I don't know how many people were clamoring for Ed Norton to come back as Hulk. But listen, before we get into all that, first up, if you want to watch more of this stuff, you want to have early access, watch it live, Patreon exclusive shows like Spider-Versity and what we're into, you can do that over at patreon.com/onlystupidanswers. We started a thing where we're reading comments from our YouTube videos and our Spotify podcast. You can do comments on Spotify. Here are some of the comments we've got. KC Soup 3 said, having to wait, this is off of our conversation about upcoming TV shows that we're looking forward to this year. Having to wait 2+ years for a new season is rough. TV is an ongoing serialized medium. Having breaks that long makes it hard to keep hype and my investment in the property up. How do you feel about that, Hector? We talked a little bit, Roxy and I talked a little bit last week about how like we're gonna have to wait 2 years for House of the Dragon, all that stuff.
Agreed. And I know Roxy being like such a fan of the medium of television, I'm sure that you guys feel the same way, where it's just like the way that it used to be was better for the actors and the creatives, was better for the economy, was better for the viewers, where it would be a sort of a year-round job. And these decisions of like, well, we're going to wait to see how well it does would be factored in differently to determine like, when can we start production on the next season as soon as possible, kind of a thing. And it does feel like they're just waiting. And I know this is also true for animated shows, like, and animation takes even longer to produce. Yeah. And there are people only now getting the first season of some show and they're like, yes, give us season 2. And it's like, oh, that show was not renewed yet. Yeah. So all of those animators and creatives went on to other, like, they need work, they need to live, they need jobs. And so, yeah, I think it's, I think something has to honestly change. It's really bad.
Yeah, and I also think with something, using House of the Dragon as an example, there were so many times this season where they're like, hey, remember that thing from season 1? And I'm like, I don't, but I believe you.
Right.
I've been seeing a lot of people this week be like, see, maybe the studios didn't have the money that they said that they didn't have, and that's why there's such an issue in Hollywood right now. And it's so upsetting because like all you have to do is look at the salaries of the top 10 people at the company to know that that's just not the case. As people are ranking in $100 million a year, $50 million a year, $30 million a year. But it is like, when you look at the stats of Hollywood right now, the statistics are staggering about this. And then you understand why it is 2.5 years before we see these TV shows, because they are just, there's no work for people right now. They've just been like, actually, screw you guys. You thought that you should go on strike. Okay. We're going to just take the money and keep me the money and then not do the work.
I like to imagine sometimes, you know, The Hobbit with, you know, the Hobbit and the dwarves, and they go and find Smaug on his pile of gold. And I like to imagine, and I like to imagine they all look at each other and go like, what if we lower Smaug's taxes? Then maybe he'll give, maybe some of that gold will trickle down.
No, it's Smaug. He loves gold.
Yeah.
That's it.
He's just going to sit on it. He's going to keep it.
Bad.
Shattered Trousers said, in my humble opinion, the only time a property has successfully hopped from television to cinema and back to television was in 1998 when The X-Files Season 5 led directly into the theatrical release of The X-Files Fight the Future. The movie provided a big budget conclusion for the story that had been brewing in the background and ramped up at the end of Season 5, as well as setting the table for the 6th season of the show to pick up where the movie concluded.
Cool.
I think this was in our conversation around Dune. And like, how's the Dune show going to connect to the Dune movies and, you know, all that stuff.
Do we not count Star Trek as something that has successfully done both? Because it's kind of like
several times.
Yeah, but to that commenter's point, there's never been a Star Trek show that then did a movie in between a season and then it went back to the season.
Yeah,
all the movies only came after the show
shows
sort of wrapped.
Yeah.
So, but I don't know. I don't know if I would count
but
that.
But
or
then
not.
they're all, a lot of them are continuations of each
Correct.
other or like
Correct.
in the same place. I'm gonna throw out there Sex in the City. I don't care that people didn't like those 2 movies and don't like and just like that. I love all of it. So good work, team.
Good job.
Good pick.
Yeah, that's a good one. I'm trying to think of another option that I can throw in there, and I can't. So I think everything, all that you guys suggested is right and good and correct. I would say, to Hector's point, I think that you could argue that Star Trek is the best expanded universe, like the best at spinning those plates, the most cohesive. Yeah.
I mean, they've had characters really and actors, I should say, that have done TV shows, then movies, then back to shows successfully enough that like it might be too early to tell if Star Wars has pulled it off. We haven't seen the Mandalorian and Grogu Child Protective Services movie yet. You know, we don't know how a Star Wars movie will react to the Star Wars shows that have come out. Yeah. Could you say that like Andor feeds into Rogue One? Sure. And vice versa, because it's a prequel, sequel situation. I'm like, yeah, but you know what I mean? Like one sort of came before the other, and there's not going to be an Andor season 3 that takes place after Rogue One.
Definitely
not. I also saw news about that this week. Did you guys see this? Who was it who said Andor season 2 is going to completely change the meaning of Rogue One?
Sure.
Like, interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know what that means, but sure. I liked Andor season 1. Season 2's got a lot of runway from me. Hey, everybody. So real quick, we had a fantastic discussion with Hector, but it went pretty long. So we are going to cut down some of our D23 talk to focus more on our main topic this week, which is Robert Downey Jr. returning as Dr. Doom and what that could mean for the future of the MCU. If you want the full unedited episode, you can check that out at patreon.com/onlystupidanswers. We did want to keep some of the D23 goodness, specifically the Marvel focused stuff. So we're going to cut right to the part where we talk about some of the Daredevil footage that they dropped at D23. Check it out. We saw some footage. They've revealed that they're including the villain Muse from the comics. This is from the Charles Soule run, which I haven't read, so I don't have a lot of familiarity with Muse. But apparently his involvement is going to, some of the stuff people were seeing that maybe Kingpin and Daredevil might have to work together a little bit to deal with this villain. Of course, we're seeing John Bernthal return as Punisher. And one of the other major highlights is apparently we see like Daredevil goes into his like mask room, and there's a bunch of different masks, including the yellow one that we saw in She-Hulk, but other versions that we've seen from the comics, which we do with Batman all the time. It does feel a little weird because that's not normally Daredevil's thing, but sure. The other big thing is they saw some footage of Hector Ayala. Wow, I butchered that. Ayala, excuse me, who is the White Tiger. And there's some excitement there because as I pulled this, I believe, from Den of Geek, they talk about how that was one of Marvel's first Hispanic superheroes. I will say that is cool. Based on leaks we've seen, I wouldn't get too attached to this version of the White Tiger. So, you know, take that for what it is.
DJ, are you looking at the leaks?
I'm not looking for them. They find
for
me.
them, but
they find me.
Them.
Yeah.
I've avoided every leak.
Yeah.
I think I can't stand people.
Yeah.
Like, what is wrong with these leakers? Why? Why you be doing that?
That doesn't bother me as much as it used to feel like Marvel kept a much tighter lid on this stuff. And I don't know that they don't care anymore, or maybe they are counting on this to create hype around it. But like, I think Deadpool and Wolverine was pretty egregious because I was like, well, if this is the stuff that's leaking, it's going to be crazy to see what's in the movie. And then you see the movie, you're like, oh, not much. That was the movie, turns out.
I was just talking to Michael Emerson, who played Benjamin Linus on Lost and a bajillion other things, but he was talking to us about what they did, like the lengths they went to on Lost to keep things from getting out, and how like when John Locke ends up in the coffin at the end, they shot 3 full actors in like scenes of them in the coffin so that the cast didn't even know who or what or how. And like so many different things with scripts where like you couldn't possibly re-forward it or send it, or nobody could possibly leak it. There are ways to do this so that things are not getting spoiled. I wish that they would invest the time and the funds into that. Like, I think that the leak stuff is so egregious and annoying and legitimately ruins things.
What do you think, Hector?
Agreed. I agree. And it's especially because you want this stuff to be shot on location. They're in New York City making Daredevil. That's cool as hell. Like Punisher and Daredevil walking down the street. How are there people sneaking into this stuff and snapping photos? You know, is it just people up in their apartments? Is it like, is there a way to prevent that? Is the thing. And we know it's been done before. And that's the other thing that's interesting too is excuse me, the character who's playing White Tiger, that actor passed away.
Oh no.
But I also know from so similar to the situation with that actor that was in Moon Knight for one episode.
Yeah.
Like, and he passed away before the show came out. And people were like so sad because they're like, well, that character could have come back, could have been a big thing. But in the comics, White Tiger, originally the character Hector, he does pass on the legacy to a woman character. Yeah. So I'm sure that that's going to be like, it would be very, very cool to get to the female White Tiger character because she's I think has a little bit more of an impact in the larger world.
A little bit better known, more recognizable.
A little bit better known. She was in an animated show with Spider-Man. Like
what's White Tiger's skill set?
White Tiger has like an amulet that gives them either boy or girl White Tiger like animalistic sort of powers and heightened senses and enhanced senses, and they kind of, you know, they're able to sort of prowl the streets of New York a little bit, but they're like a street level vigilante style. They would be there with Power Man or Luke Cage or Iron Fist or Daredevil or those kinds of street level characters. And they're supposed to be like a community hero, like because they're usually Latinx, they will focus on, I'm trying to make my community here in my neighborhood here better. So that's basically their deal.
But they shapeshift?
No, they just have a white costume, but they just have the powers, like the enhanced ability, kind of like a Black Panther.
So they don't turn in. It's not like Beast Boy.
No, it's like Black Panther.
You're not turning.
Yeah, and in fact, there's I believe there's a version of White Tiger that was part of Christopher Priest's Black Panther run.
Yeah,
he's got one of my favorite costumes because it's, imagine Black Panther's costume but white, and then he has a black trench coat on it, and I'm like, that looks cool. That's a cool costume. And the other thing is apparently the actor who plays Miss Marvel's father in the Miss Marvel show is showing up in Daredevil Born Again. He was a part of this footage as well. So.
Yeah, people were like, why him? And I'm like, yeah, that's kind of weird. But Matt Murdock, like Jennifer Walters, is the Marvel Universe's lawyer. Yeah. So you can have characters coming in, which is really fun, you know, and I think and also behind this show, they know that.
That takes place in New York. Why not him? You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. That's a good Jersey dad. It's right there.
Good, easy pick.
Sure. And why him? Let's find out. Yeah. They'll tell us why him.
We've got some questions from the Discord. I wanted to focus on this one from Maggie. Were there any theme park announcements that got y'all excited? I'm very much looking forward to the Coco boat ride planned for the Disney California Adventure.
Cool. Yeah, same.
Did you guys I had to look up, because I was so focused on this stuff, I actually had to look up some of the ride announcements. They're announcing a Villains Land for Magic Kingdom, which sounds awesome. I am a little bummed. It's like it's a double-edged sword because they're revamping Dino Land USA and Animal Kingdom to be a more Latin America focused land, which dope. There's I just literally flew out of my brain.
Hey, good news is, DJ, that dinosaurs were also Latin American. You
See, well, that's the thing.
So give them accents. Just have them. I'm a Triceratops. Hey, and it's win-win for everybody. I would love that.
But the
Hispanic dinosaurs.
The bummer is they're replacing the dinosaur ride with an Indiana Jones ride, and it's like, but I love the dinosaur. I have so much nostalgia.
That was weird too, DJ. Countdown to Extinction was like my jam before it was the dinosaurs ride. I loved that ride, and so this is the one thing that came out of D23, all of the theme park announcements that my brother and I scheduled an hour-long FaceTime about.
That's great.
Yeah, discussion, because we love Disney.
Yeah.
We love Disneyland. We love Disney World. Like, we used to go with my mom. It's got a huge place in our heart. He just flew out here to come with me because I was invited to Club 33. He flew out to do that with me as my +1 because he was so excited. So it's like a huge deal to us. So we were going through all of them. And I don't really understand why Indiana Jones, everything sounds great.
Yeah.
Why are they doing Indiana Jones at Animal Kingdom? Animal Kingdom.
Well, especially when you say
Animal
we're
Kingdom,
rebranding
Indiana
because
Jones.
we're rebranding the land as a Latin American land. It's like, well, that's not Indiana Jones. But I think it's because
I'm confused.
the dinosaur track uses the same track as the Indiana Jones ride in Disneyland. So
Do
maybe
you think it's to save money?
I don't know. But it bums me out.
I don't know. I think it's fine because I love the Indiana Jones ride. So
Yeah.
whatever. And like they'd be needing it in Florida. So that's fine. But it's just one thing that I'm really gonna miss about Disney and theme parks in general is not like Countdown to Extinction was not a movie.
Right.
It was like it makes its own world. And I love rides that make their own world.
Same.
And then movies even designed after those rides. But now every ride announcement is about a world that's already made. And it just takes kind of some of the creativity and imagination out of it, even though those are really cool.
Yeah.
Like I miss, even though this was a show, I miss Tower of Terror when it was Twilight Zone. I've gone to Guardians. I'm a bigger fan of Guardians than I am of Twilight Zone.
But we still missed it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's weird.
I still miss Alien Encounter. I feel like they own the Xenomorph now. They might as well just bring the ride back as that. But the double-edged sword of that stuff is, yes, we're losing dinosaur, but it looks like they're making an Encanto ride, which is great because I love that movie.
So, that's
Very
cool as shit. I love it, kid.
Yeah.
That's gonna be
great.
awesome. And like a lot of the roller coasters that they're doing too at California Adventure. Do you guys see those 2 roller coaster announcements?
Yeah.
The Avengers stuff.
Yes, exactly. Which I'm like, that's cool because not even just who they're doing, but we need more roller coasters. Like there's at California Adventure, there's one roller coaster and then everything else is like a mini thing. It's like, show us
I'm not a roller coaster boy, so I'm going to disagree with you on that. But I do understand the sentiment.
Variety is the spice of life. Like
you're
in
right,
the entire
you're right.
theme park, there's one roller coaster. Like, come on.
I just want more dark rides. Like they announced, I think one of the roller coasters is inspired by the door room in Monsters Inc., which that sequence, I just rewatched Monsters Inc. That sequence is incredible.
It's so good.
And it's like, and making a roller coaster does make sense. I just know I'm not going to ride it, which bums me out.
This is the first, they're doing their first roller coaster that's like what they have at Six Flags with Superman or with Batman, whichever one is it, where your feet are dangling.
Yeah.
You'd be dangling your feet. That's different. Disney doesn't have that.
Yeah.
Like, I'm stoked. Although I'm really concerned because right now ticket prices are $250 to go to Disneyland. What do you think that this is going to do? It's like, you cannot take a family there anymore unless this is your European vacation. Like this is your big vacation is one day at Disney.
Yeah. Yep. Well,
I feel like the lawyer in Jurassic Park that's like, oh, we'll do a coupon day, or I don't know.
Yes.
Like, I feel like an asshole. Like that's where we're at with these parks, man. They're so pricey.
Disgusting. Like who is this for? Who is this for if you have to be a very successful person in your 40s to be able to afford this? Who is Disney for? Like
that for the successful, we want to make experiences for the wealthy people in this country. Roxy,
then we should.
How long have you been in America?
We should say anyone under 15 goes for free. Then, if we're going to keep upping the prices, it should be any kid goes for free.
That would be great. I would love to.
It's
live
under
in that
3
world.
right now, and people be lying all the time. It's so amazing.
Of course,
like,
of course they do.
When you have your kid until they're 8, they're 3. Don't forget that.
Yeah. I will remember. I will keep that in my back pocket. Speaking of keeping things in your back pocket, yeah, that's right. That's the segue I'm going with. Yep. We have this question from the Discord from Jake Hefner. I feel the return of RDJ really reeks of desperation on Disney's part. While it's obvious the Multiverse Saga isn't hitting for everyone, it feels like they're backtracking everything to try and win back fans who have fallen off. Is this a good move by Disney or a potential nail in the coffin? So this is going to segue into our other part of the discussion today that we haven't really had a chance to really dive into.
How did Roxy find out this news?
How did Roxy find out about this news? Roxy, how did you find out that RDJ is returning his doom? And then how do you feel about it?
I like that we've kidnapped Hector for way longer than Hector probably signed on for. We're keeping you hostage, Hector. Okay, so here's what happened. I am doing a lot of social media posts right now for Real Rejects. I've revamped their entire social team.
Cool.
So the streaming live was, I want to say, was it John and Greg? They were streaming live. Yes, it's John and Greg. They're streaming live. So I'm watching their stream to clip things out as they're talking about it. And
Yeah.
I'm not actually watching reactions. So I'm in there watching them watch the chat. So they're not live streaming anything. They are watching a chat scroll, telling them news and refreshing on Twitter.
Yeah.
And I'm just looking at their faces. So I'm pulling clip outs of other things, whatever it is. And then I think Greg was like, no, that's not true. And I'm like, what's not true? What's not true? And John's like, no, that's not true. But they're not saying what's not true. So I'm like looking in the chat, trying to find out what's not true. And they're like, oh, cool. So like doomsday, that's great. And I was like, why were they so confused? Why that's not true? So I'm not sure what even the announcement is. And now I'm like Googling and trying to look at them. And then they're like, no, but it can't be RDJ. I'm like, what can't be RDJ? What can't be RDJ? What are you guys talking about? And then they pull up the picture of him taking off his mask. And I was like, is this a photoshopped image? Like, so I'm watching a reaction and that's how I'm finding out the news, which was just such a wild way to do it, because before I could even come up with my own thoughts on it, I'm already getting other people's reactions to this news, which is like half the chat being like, this is the worst decision that they've ever made. And half the chat being like, I can't believe he's back. But I'll give you my brief initial thoughts on this, that I tried to formulate myself without all of the impact that was coming in.
Yeah. How do you feel about it, Roxy? I would love to know.
I feel like such a shill because all of my educated friends at this point, and by educated, I mean like my friends who love this medium, who either love Doom or just love comic book movies, or comic book readers. Everybody who I know who is educated in this subject matter do not like this. Every single person I know who's like, this is why this is bad.
I think you can count DJ and I in that category. Yes. Go on. Keep going.
And I saw that your Heroes guys did not like it either. I saw you guys put out a video where it seemed like it was not landing for you. And in our community, I know a ton of comic book people, like humble brag. I know so many comic book readers. Every person I talk to, including my friends, my manager, you guys, everybody I have spoken to is like, that is knowledgeable in this arena, thinks that this is a bad call for a plethora of different reasons. And not all of those are the same reasons. We can list some of them in a minute. But I think this is awesome. And I stand alone on an island.
You're not alone. You're not alone.
The reason I do is because I come at this from an actor's perspective,
right?
Not from a comic book reader perspective. And I think that there is nothing cooler than being given the chance to be the hero and the villain of a universe and prove yourself that you can do that. And I love watching people who have had the kind of journey that RDJ has. Jonathan Majors was just like comparing himself to RDJ, which is ridiculous because it's not the same type of thing.
Yeah,
but RDJ does come from, let's call it a rocky past. Everybody knows what's happened. To watch him become the hero and then transform into the villain yet again, I think is going to be such a cool, I want to say exercise, which I know is not what you're supposed to do in a movie. You're supposed to do that in an improv class. But to me, that's where the beauty lies in all of this. I think it's going to be so fun to watch. I won't be able to take my eyes off of him. My only big major qualm is people. People hate this and they don't stop talking about how much they hate this. And it's going to be the entire conversation around this movie is people who do not like this and people who do like this fighting about whether this is the right call. And I don't want that. I just want to watch the movie,
Sure. I think you're in a really great position, though, because you will be able to watch the movie. You'll probably go to a screening of this before it comes out that weekend.
I'm not sure because they don't seem to be inviting me to anything.
Well, then talk to your boys because that's messed up. You should be. The thing is that you in your position, Roxy, you are seeing it from both sides where you're like, I look at this as a movie and the actors that are in it and what sort of general audiences, how they could respond to this. But you also have that perspective of, I've heard a lot of these comic book people talk about the pluses and minuses of it, but I think that you'll be fine. And I think you're going to get what you're talking about, which is going to be a really fun movie experience. And I think that I want to say the two things that make me feel good about this are, first of all, when somebody was able to talk to Kevin Feige right after this announcement for maybe Deadpool and Wolverine, something, I don't know what. He was saying like, okay, it's good that the audience has responded this way, because then he said, it's up to us to prove to you why this is a worthwhile endeavor, why we're doing this. It's up to us. It's on us to like make it work and to prove it. And just hearing him say that made me a little less kind of stressed about it, because I'm like, okay, of course you know what the ramifications of this are, and of course you know why people would be hesitant to like accept it. And for him to just say it's up to us, meaning the writer or writers, the director, the producers, himself, everybody, Robert Downey Jr., to like sell it, makes me feel good about it. It made me feel like it was not a thoughtless, fully desperate, flippant decision. It was something that was like, we're looking at our options. The other thing I saw was, this doesn't necessarily make me feel good about it, but it did help me understand it, is that somebody was like, right when this happened, they went, this is the same thing that happens in wrestling when you announce a big event and something happens and like it gets canceled, Jonathan Majors, you then have to follow up with an even bigger event than what you initially promised. You have to deliver something even bigger. So that's them relating wrestling promotion and logic to what the MCU is doing. And I'm like, well, yes, in that regard, it absolutely makes sense. This is a great way to distract from the fact that they're no longer making a movie called Avengers: The Kang Dynasty. That hasn't been talked about yet.
That we have been leading up to.
Right.
Avengers on the slate. Like this is something we're in the middle of. Yeah.
Right. So I think comic book fans, would agree. I'll agree that like the real bigger show leading into these kinds of stories, this multiverse thing or Secret Wars, the bigger show other than Kang would be Doctor Doom, but we don't have Doctor Doom yet. And now Marvel's like, no, we'll have a Doctor Doom. Here you go. The second thing that makes me feel good about it was that thinking about it and realizing like, okay, but this isn't going to be the Doctor Doom going forward. This is going to be the multiverse. This is going to be a story that is a one-off or two-off in 2 movies. And then at some point we will get what I would consider to be a real Doctor Doom, who is lived in, who has a relationship with the Pedro Pascal, Reed Richards, who is like a part of the Marvel universe going forward. And it
How
still
confident
makes
do you feel that is what they are doing?
100% confident.
Okay.
Because I do not think they're bringing back Robert Downey Jr. to exist as Victor Von Doom going forward. Because the reason I say this is Doctor Doom is a character like Loki, Winter Soldier, Magneto, to an extent Green Goblin, but we haven't really seen that in the movies yet, who is a long-lived character. That villain character is going to have a presence the whole time. He's not a Killmonger who you kill in one movie. He's not a Ironmonger, Jeff Bridges, who you kill in one movie. He is the character that has that long presence.
I also don't know that they can keep throwing $100 million paychecks at RDJ.
Logistically, true. Logistically, but also like logistically, I mean, in that same conversation, like he's not a young man.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they're going to get a young actor to play Doctor Doom, because Pedro Pascal's not a young man either. But like, they're going to get somebody who's maybe 40s, maybe 50 to play the character for 10-ish years. And I don't see that happening logistically, but also story-wise, that does not make sense to have Robert Downey Jr. be Victor Von Doom in a Marvel universe where characters may initially react to it, but eventually will just stop reacting to the fact that he looks like Tony Stark and just have to accept him as Doctor Doom. That's not how this is going to work. But you feel
confident that there is going to be right after him?
No, I didn't say right after. Say right after, because we didn't get a Norman Osborn right after Willem Dafoe came back. Right?
That's my question to you, because what do you think? So if Victor Von Doom is going to be RDJ for the next 2 movies, then
then what I think is going to happen is, and I think DJ wanted to bring some of this up too, because the Fantastic Four is in the 60s and they're in another universe.
Yeah, they basically confirmed at SDCC that it is taking place in the 60s. Yeah.
And the X-Men are in another universe or multiple universes. So let's pretend, for example, that the X-Men that we saw at the end of the Marvels, which was Beast, and he mentioned Charles Xavier. So there's like a Professor X.
Yeah.
Let's assume that Kelsey Grammer Beast is talking about a Patrick Stewart Professor X. And let's assume that may be connected to Hugh Jackman Wolverine, Ryan Reynolds Deadpool, whatever other X-Men actors, maybe Ian McKellen, maybe Halle Berry, but like that, let's all say that that's a universe. It might not be the exact same Fox universe that some of the X-Men movies have taken place, meaning the Wolverine that we saw in Deadpool and Wolverine was not the same Wolverine from like X-Men 1, 2, and 3. We know that. That wasn't the point of that movie. But let's say for this experiment that there's going to be an X-Men universe, and now with this Fantastic Four movie, they did not bring back Michael Chiklis or Jessica Alba or Chris Evans for anything other than a fun moment. They did not bring back those actors because Marvel Studios understands those two first Fantastic Four movies are not beloved the way that the X-Men films were. They didn't bring back anybody from the Josh Trank Fantastic Four movie. So they restarted their own. They didn't
bring back, when are you talking about, in Deadpool Wolverine, or do you just mean for this new movie? Like, what do you mean didn't bring back?
In the MCU, in the sacred timeline, in Universe 616, J. Jonah Jameson is played by J.K. Simmons because there is no other actor. They would have even... So, like, they got him. And there's just no explanation for it. No explanation needed. It doesn't matter. We all accept it. He's kind of a supporting character. It's not a big confusing to do. We know this is a different character, but it's played by the same actor. But they did not do that and start a Fantastic Four movie set in the sacred timeline and go, and here's Michael Chiklis, and here's Jessica Alba. Like, they didn't do that because those movies are not beloved. But J.K. Simmons as J. Jonah Jameson is beloved. So they brought him back. And they didn't do that for the X-Men. They didn't start their own X-Men franchise as soon as they got the rights to it and recast Wolverine, Storm, Cyclops, because they're like, hang on, pause. We're doing a multiverse era. We can use that as an excuse, and with Deadpool's help, to bring back the X-Men characters from some of the movies that people love and remember, because we'll culminate in a story where different realities are crashing into each other, and at the end, the multiverse will be fixed and kind of streamlined, and there may remain an X-Men reality, but it'll be separate from the Marvel universe. And what we'll do to kind of make it seem as though we're having a reboot, similar to the comics, which after the Secret Wars comic in the year 2015, they didn't really do a reboot, but they did, because their reboot was now Miles Morales is a part of the universe.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that happened in the comics that was noteworthy. It's like, now Miles Morales is here because he was in his own universe and he was very popular, so they brought him in. So I think Marvel is doing the same thing with Fantastic Four. They're going to make a movie that I hope is going to be a hit, and then after Secret Wars, they're going to go, now the Fantastic Four are here, and they're just in the sacred timeline instead of having be in a separate universe that they'll always have to Marvel circle sparkle just to get to. It's just one extra little hurdle. But I think after Robert Downey Jr. plays Doctor Doom for 2 movies, where he's playing a Doctor Doom who looks like Tony Stark, I think after that, and maybe after a few years...
But you think Marvel it's a plot point that he looks like Tony Stark?
Yeah, I do.
You think that he's mask off Tony Stark, people notice he looks like Tony Stark?
Not the whole time, maybe not as much as Iron Man, but yeah, I think that's going to be a plot point. I think you don't bring back Robert Downey Jr. to not do that. I don't think you bring him back because he really is the best actor in the world who's the only actor who could play that. No, he's Iron Man. And I think that at the end of these movies, there will be a moment where maybe he will play a Tony Stark variant again also to kind of continue. Like, I don't think we're going to leave Robert Downey Jr. in this franchise with the audience around the world thinking he was the hero and the villain. Awesome. No, they're going to leave thinking he's Tony Stark.
Yeah, we're going to have
Dr. Doom, but there's going to be a victorious moment. There's going to be something that's going to let him be Iron Man.
It's going to be like Endgame, but with all the portals. But instead of all the other heroes come out, it's all variations of Robert Downey Jr. It's all the Robert Downey Jr.'s converging on his doom to stop him. So Hector, with this, and I do want to spin off a little bit because we had a big old discussion about previously about whether the MCU should reboot. But before we kind of like dip into that, what you just suggested that they will probably do, which I do think you're right, that we're obviously Fantastic Four's in the universe. We're doing a version of the Fox universe, and they're going to collide in Secret Wars. Does that excite you?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's because at a practical level, it's just an excuse to have previous actors come back that I like. I like Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, and I like Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man. And I think that if they were ever going to come back again, it would be in something like this. But I do think that moving forward, Marvel Studios, I hope and I imagine and I believe that they recognize that, like, okay, but we can't have Hugh Jackman play Wolverine till he's 90. Seriously. Yeah. We can't. And and his version of the character, even if we do a new version that no one's ever seen for a movie like Deadpool and Wolverine and kind of go off of that, these versions of the characters, they're all played by these older actors now. Kelsey Grammer, Patrick Stewart's 90. You can't, they're going to want to build their own stories with these characters from the ground up, like they did with Tom Holland, Spider-Man. Yeah.
Wait,
they have their own Spider-Man.
Are you saying that you think, though, for the next little bit, that we are going to see Hugh Jackman, Halle Berry, Kelsey Grammer?
Sure.
Like, is that? And we are not going to get a new Storm. We're not going to get a new Wolverine.
Not until after Secret Wars. And the reason is because there's previous versions of those characters that audiences like, but there's not really previous versions of the Fantastic Four that audiences like. That's why they did their own. That's why they did this new cast.
Who is our young blood?
I mean, I don't know. I'm not a casting director, but that's a great question.
But I'm saying which characters, not which actors.
For what? For X-Men? For what are we talking about?
Well, if you're just saying that what we're doing is that what we're going to get back everybody who's previously played a major X-Men character.
Sure.
I don't think any of them are under the age of 55.
I know. You're right.
So are we going to have no X-Men under the age of 55 for the next several years?
I'm confused by the question. You're saying...
I think it's... correct me if I'm wrong here, Roxy. It's this idea that we're really going to just live with these older actors until Secret Wars. We're not going to introduce any other X characters.
The answer is yes. There's Marvel Studios is not going to all of a sudden do their own version of... And also, here's Charles Xavier from the MCU Sacred Timeline Reality 616. Here's our Charles Xavier. Because I think they want audiences to enjoy Hugh Jackman, Patrick Stewart, all of this nostalgia. Then when it's done... Because there's also no need to do an X-Men movie right now. There's none. There's no need. They have all these other movies.
Are you thinking that the Young Avengers are going to be involved in this? I just I can't imagine.
Oh, you're just asking what young characters will then? Yes, Young Avengers. That's the answer. Yes, and Tom Holland Spider-Man. His character is still in high school. And yes, I think there's Kamala Khan.
He filled out his GED. He'll be college age next time we see him.
He'll be college age by the next movie. But also Ms. Marvel is the other young blood. So I think there's already enough diversity in terms of age groups, racial backgrounds, demographics with the MCU characters right now. Racist people will tell you there's too much, and that's a problem. We just want the white male heroes to come back and blah, blah, blah. But I think there's enough diversity. No, you don't. But I think there's enough.
White men only. Come on, Hector.
I think this goes back to the Robert Downey Jr. as Dr. Doom, because it's just like, this is not something that is going to be... I think the reason the comic book fans are like, well, this doesn't work is because we see Dr. Doom as a Magneto.
Yeah.
And this would be like if Marvel announced Ian McKellen is back to play Magneto forever. It's like, that's not what they're going to do. Ian McKellen is too old, and and his version has too much baggage, and that's not. But if they say Ian McKellen is going to be back for Avengers Secret Wars, perfect. I can't wait to see him. Put him in the suit. Have him do a thing.
Post Secret Wars, are you thinking that we are recasting everyone?
Not everyone. Well, it depends on what you're asking about, but yes, I think that Marvel Studios is going to want to build their own X-Men characters, because
in 2028,
because to me, 2028 into infinity, there is so much potential for these characters. Even Wolverine, who we've seen so many angles of, there are still stories you can tell with that character, because he's like a top tier character that they can do with a Logan, with a new actor coming in and playing that role. Now, I'm not saying this is going to be an easy pill to swallow, but neither was Tom Holland. And the way that they showed him up in Captain America Civil War and then gave him his own movie, within a scene, I was so endeared to this version of Peter Parker that I was like, man, I love Andrew, but I love this kid. But I think it's possible to do. It's possible to do.
I would argue that that is an argument against bringing back RDJ, because it wasn't like, hey, we're introducing Spider-Man in the MCU in Civil War, and guess what? Toby's back from an alternate universe. You're going to have to wait another 10 years before you get Tom Holland's Spider-Man. And it's like...
No, I'm not into this choice. I would have loved a homegrown version of Victor Von Doom, because I think Roxy's bringing up some concerns, and I don't mean to put words in your mouth. Correct me if I'm wrong, Roxy, but like, you're thinking about the movie viewer that's like fallen in love with X-Men movies for the past 2 decades. And in a couple of years, Marvel Studios is going to be like, here's your new Logan. And it's like, what are we supposed to do with that? Here's your new Charles Xavier, your new Magneto, your new Storm, your new, what are we supposed to do with that? I don't know. But the thing about Robert Downey Jr. is, instead of it being from the ground up, like with this Fantastic Four movie, that movie seems to be maybe their best shot at making people like those characters, because it's like a cool, stylish movie in its own little world, and the characters have a really seemingly good dynamic. We just want people to like these characters. For me, I want people to like Victor Von Doom as a character the way we grew to like Thanos. And think about how they rolled out Thanos. In the first couple appearances, people were unimpressed, and then it hit, and people love that character because Infinity War had a great script and did him justice. And I want that. But I think people are now forever, or for a couple of years at least, going to go Dr. Doom. But I liked Robert Downey Jr.'s Dr. Doom. He was the Dr. Doom for me. I thought that was a really cool story. And it might muddy the water a little bit and confuse sort of what Dr. Doom is. Because this multiverse thing is already confusing enough. And for me to explain, like, and then afterwards, that Fantastic Four Matt Shackman movie will be merged into the 616, and maybe they'll be, instead of active in the 60s, they'll just be present in this, they'll be active in the present day. Might already be too confusing, and audiences might not, you know, I don't know how that's going to play out.
Yeah.
So I had the opposite concern that you think I'm having.
Okay.
Because I am here for the kids, not the us's of the world.
Sure.
It feels like a really good breaking point right now. It feels like what we're doing is prolonging the inevitable. And like, why? Why are we bringing back? Because they've been gone for a long time, other than Hugh Jackman.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Why are we bringing back all of the old X-Men to then recast all of the X-Men when we could recast all of the X-Men now and have our X-Men moving forward?
Because those actors are still alive. That's the answer.
No, but I think, and I truthfully think, I agree with Roxy, and I think we're on the same, because, you know, Hector, you've been explaining what you think they're doing, but I actually think in some ways we're all on the same page in that this idea of recasting the X-Men is only a problem because you're making it a problem. If you just said post Endgame, guess what? The X-Men are here, and because you did that with Spider-Man, you said here, and most, like Roxy pointed out, other than Hugh Jackman, most of the X-Men have already been recast at least once. So you can just be like, by the way, the X-Men are here, and same with Fantastic Four. By the way, big space shenanigans happened.
Yeah.
We need people to go around and look up in space, and they got hit by cosmic rays while they're up there. Now we have the Fantastic Four. We're off to the races, but now you've made it of this issue because you keep throwing in multiverse curveballs at us.
To maybe try to clarify, so far, who have we seen come back from the X-Men movies? Hugh Jackman, Ryan Reynolds, and his sort of supporting cast of Deadpool characters, because they made a Deadpool 3. Yeah. Patrick Stewart in Doctor Strange, and the voice of Kelsey Grammer. I don't think anyone else has come back. Yeah. And I think there's a very specific reason why they sort of chose all of those. And I'm not saying they're going to bring back everybody. I'm saying that potential is there. I'm saying, look at how audiences responded to, for a second, Blade, who was awesome, Elektra, who was in a bad movie, and Channing Tatum's Gambit, who was never in a movie. People loved those that when that happened in the story, that like it made you like Jennifer Garner's Elektra. That was a famously
but you know what it
bad
didn't
film.
make me want? You know what it didn't make me feel? I wish that Jennifer Garner will come back as Elektra. That's not what I felt watching.
I know.
What I felt was that was really fun for this movie.
Send-off.
And I think that what is interesting also is that this week you guys saw Halle Berry came out and she said, I told Ryan, if he wants me to come back and reprise my role, I absolutely will. But he did not ask. And I wonder if he did not ask because that is not their plan. I wonder if their plan is not to bring her back as Storm. And that would have been,
could be.
Like you said, we didn't bring back, there was a reason why in Deadpool and Wolverine, I think, that instead of bringing back the X-Men, we brought back a variety of Marvel characters that had or hadn't ever had the role. Maybe they were like, we don't want to do this moving forward, so we don't even want to remind the people that these are the people in this universe. Other than Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds.
But they're making a Blade movie. And they still brought back Wesley Snipes, and he made a joke about it. And I think you're right.
Are they making a Blade movie, Hector?
Yes, they
Tell
are.
me about it. What's happening? What's
They're
happening?
making it. They're working on it. I don't know. I'm not working on the movie. But they're doing it.
They're working on it. They're working on it.
Mahershala Ali. He's in it. Yeah.
We'll see. I mean, sure. I agree.
But my question then is, do you think that because Wesley Snipes was in Deadpool and Wolverine, that they'll never do their own Blade movie again, or that they'll
I don't think that they'll never, but I honestly don't know that they're going to make a Blade movie with Mahershala Ali. Yeah. I don't know that they're going to do that.
Have a very strong feeling that they will. And the point of all this is going, if your guys' questioning is why didn't they just get right to the X-Men, is two things. They looked at what can top the Infinity Saga. And when they looked at major sort of Marvel Comics concepts and ideas and storylines, and they went, okay, well, the multiverse can lead to some interesting stuff. Let's go with that because it feels like it's bigger stakes than the universe is at stake. Well, what if every universe is at stake? It feels like a logical step up. Okay. The second
It's not
thing
my
is
question though. No part
what's
of me
your,
is like, why didn't they get to the X-Men sooner?
okay.
My question is, why are we going to bring back all of the old X-Men?
That's the same question, Roxy. It's the same question. Sure, it's the same question because you're asking. Yes, you're saying why are they bringing back Hugh Jackman, Patrick Stewart, and Kelsey Grammer and question mark when they could just be doing new X-Men? So your question is why aren't they doing new X-Men? Why in the year 2022 did we not get a new film or Disney Plus TV show called X-Men where Marvel Studios just did that? Because I
don't think right now. I'm excited for Fantastic Four. I don't think that we need to introduce X-Men right this second that are new.
Sure. So, okay. So we're in agreement with that. And I think part of the reason that Marvel Studios agrees also that they don't need to introduce new X-Men that are new, because that's a big thing. It's a big endeavor. The X-Men they could be looked at as like the Batman of the DC universe, but for Marvel, they're so big. There's so much. But I think they're looking at this opportunity. And I don't know when this timeline happened, but like Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, the animated film came out. Multiverses started to sort of catch on a little bit in pop culture. You get to Marvel Studios going, we have an opportunity to bring in not just Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, Willem Dafoe, Alfred Molina, Jamie Foxx. How cool would that be? Even the Jamie Foxx that people didn't like, we can do it good. How cool would it be to have a Patrick Stewart in the yellow hover chair in a Doctor Strange movie? We'll kill him off, but it's still cool. How cool would it be to have Hugh Jackman come back? He expressed interest. It would work through the Deadpool context, not through any other context. How cool would it be so they just keep doing this. And these toys are too tantalizing to not play with, that I think that's why they're pausing. And again, I'm not saying they're going to bring back all the X-Men actors, but if they wanted to, some of them, even Halle Berry, because if they, in Avengers Secret Wars, have a moment where Halle Berry Storm comes through, however you feel about Halle Berry as Storm.
I'll be stoked. I would be stoked, of course, because I loved Deadpool, Wolverine. I loved No Way Home. These are movies that I love.
I agree.
It's not that I wouldn't be stoked.
I agree.
It's just I want them to set themselves up for success. And I don't feel that they're doing that by constantly reminding us who was instead of letting us know who's going to be, which is the whole point of our initial conversation that we had, DJ, that I know you wanted to bring back. Yeah. Why I've been for hard reboot.
Yeah. And so
it's prolonged.
And I think this connects with that. So when we had that conversation of reboot, if I recall correctly, Roxy was very pro team reboot and Hector was very not pro reboot. I think it sounds like we're all in the same sphere that what Marvel is doing, whether we like it or not, is at least a soft reboot pro Secret Wars. So, and I want to ask both of you, Roxy, we'll start with you. How do you feel about the idea? Does this excite you? This notion of
that's what we all think they're going to do. You're saying post Secret Wars,
that because I don't know that we all agree that maybe RDJ is not going to stay as Doom, but like, what are the chances the FF are going to stay off in the 1960s? You know what I mean? Why would you keep them separate? Roxanne, we played this game with Supergirl for years where she was in another universe for reasons that were inexplicable by the time her show was on CW. But let me phrase it this way, whether we agree with that or not. Let's say that they are working towards at least a soft reboot. Let's say that is what they're doing. Mm-hmm. Are we excited for that? Roxy, are you excited for the idea of a soft reboot?
I really am because, DJ, because of your little kid who at that point is going to get to, like, you're going to be able to experience that together. The newness of it all. I think that it all really hinges on Fantastic Four right now. Like, if this movie sucks, we can't even have the conversation we're having because I don't even know what we'll do. Like if we're like, wow, those actors that didn't work, the movie didn't work, the characters didn't work, then am I excited for this soft reboot? No, it all really hinges on that. Mm-hmm. I just have a lot of faith in the movie and I think it's going to be amazing. And then I think moving forward, because I don't think that they're going to be part of the soft reboot. I think we're already soft rebooting to them, so they will stick around. I'm excited to explore and to get new casting. I mean, when people don't want Hugh Jackman to be recast, I get it. I love him as Wolverine, but I'm so excited for our next Wolverine.
Yeah, same.
Whoever it is, I'd be so excited to see whoever our next Wolverine is. I want that, and I want that for all of us.
Let me tell you something. I think the reason we did not see Hugh Jackman in the brown suit fight the Hulk in that quick little montage is because I think Marvel Studios is honestly saving that for when they'll introduce their Logan.
Yeah.
I honestly believe they'll have Mark Ruffalo Hulk be somewhere in the Canadian woods, and that will be a scene. And that will be the way to bring in this new actor. And I agree with you,
It's going to
Roxy.
be Mark Ruffalo?
Yes.
Well,
so here's something I have to clarify.
But I do
here's
want
something I want to clarify this, because she's holding her earlobe and she's very excited about soft reboot, and I think she believes that means every character will be recast.
Hector, I hate to break it to you, Hector. I would be shocked if we come out of Secret Wars without a new Steve Rogers and a new RDJ.
Nope.
And I know that's not what you want.
Nope.
But I would be surprised if that's not what Marvel does.
I think you're wrong, and I think that would be wrong for them to do.
I'm not saying it's the right thing for them to do. I'm just saying you might want to buckle up, because I would be surprised if they don't do that.
Hector, when do you see us getting a new Steve Rogers?
Never. He's retired.
Quite literally never.
Yes, because we have, if you want Sam Wilson, if you want Captain America, you've got Sam Wilson. But if you just want Steve Rogers stories, I think they're done. Or going forward, if you want Steve Rogers stories, Disney and Marvel will go, here's comic books. Because
so no one else will ever play Steve Rogers ever again.
No, and there's no need for that. There's no need to. Because
do you feel that way about Batman?
No, because that's different. Because there hasn't been a long-running, successful Batman DC universe. There hasn't been one. So I feel differently. It's like if there was a new, I'll tell you this, there were iterations of Batman that kept coming out after Kevin Conroy played the character, but they kept building out that universe with Superman the Animated Series, Batman Beyond, Justice League Unlimited, a couple of direct-to-video movies. They worked on a DC animated universe, kind of took it for as far as they could, for the most part. But if DC were to get the same attention, love, and respect and care that Marvel Studios has been getting through whatever, I would feel differently. If there were a solid Batman trilogy and spin-offs of Batman characters and a monumental Batman death like Iron Man and Avengers Endgame, I wouldn't be like, well, we need a new Bruce Wayne. I'd be like, there's Dick Grayson, Tim Drake, Jason Todd. There's so many other characters to explore.
To you? Because 8 years is long running to me with TDK. Is that not long running to you? What's long running?
Long running, but also lived in the rest of the universe.
Hung out with Superman and stuff like that.
Long running is not only
long running and crossover.
Long running in a couple of movies, but long running also means did certain big character moments happen with that character where I feel satisfied stepping away from Tony Stark? The answer is yes. My God. I'm not looking at Iron Man comics and going, but they didn't do this one Iron Man story. I'm good.
Then what about Amanda Waller though? Because we're about to see Amanda Waller forever, have been seeing her forever.
Sure.
Are you thinking there's never going to be another Amanda Waller cast?
Yeah, and I'm fine with that. If Amanda Waller...
That would be wild.
Yeah, no, that's completely reasonable to me. It's the same as J.K. Simmons playing J. Jonah Jameson. Amanda Waller's not a superhero character who, again, it's too early to tell because she was in the middle and tail end of the DCEU, which I don't think overall worked. But going forward, it's still going to be the same Amanda Waller. Whatever James Gunn and those teams do with that character over the next couple of years, I'm interested in. But that character also does not have as much weight as a major sort of title character for some of these franchises. And with the Marvel Cinematic Universe, with Marvel Studios, we got 3 Captain America movies with Steve Rogers, and he was in a bunch of Avengers stuff. And we have a satisfying conclusion to his story. He retired with Peggy. We had 3 Iron Man movies plus all the Avengers stuff. We've had so far 3 Spider-Man movies, but he's young. They're going to keep telling those movies. We've had 2 Black Panther movies. We lost one Black Panther, but we've got another one. And Black Panther has a son, and eventually that Black Panther will be revisited, and the Black Panther Wakanda stuff is all still in there. I don't want to throw away Shuri as Black Panther, Okoye, Angela Bassett's character, all of those characters just to be we have a new actor playing T'Challa. Why?
We live in a medium though where technology constantly is changing. So you think in 50 years people should be watching the old Steve Rogers because he's such a precious character that we couldn't possibly recast him for whatever the future holds for movies.
Yes, everyone right now is rewatching Alien from 1979 starring Sigourney Weaver because there's a new Alien film coming out and it works. It's fine.
But real quick though. So with this soft reboot, let's say let's say they're going to keep Sam Wilson post Secret Wars and all that stuff. For the what you laid out, because I do think there's evidence to support that, Fantastic Four and the X-Men universe and the Avengers are all going to clash and it's going to be a soft reboot after. Does that excite you?
You're asking me?
Yes.
Yeah, because I think in my mind, soft reboot means none of these characters are going to be recast. other than the characters from other realities who have not been a part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe thus far, like the X-Men. That's basic. So when we're talking about like Wolverine will be recast, that's true, but Wolverine has also not technically appeared in the MCU Sacred Universe yet.
Yeah.
Do you think that Tom Holland is our last Spider-Man?
Peter Parker, sure. But
you think Tom Holland is our last Peter Parker ever?
Yes. And then Miles Morales comes into the picture. And I think Spider-Man's
hundreds of years from now.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm not necessarily against that. I'm all for a good Miles Morales.
And hundreds of years from now, it's going to be Spider-Man 2099. It'll be Miguel O'Hara.
We'll get Miguel. Listen, man, I'm all for it. Yeah. But here's what I'm hearing. Here's what I'm concerned about, and I will admit up front that I'm 100% injecting some of my own feelings, because I had this 1-2 punch of seeing Deadpool and Wolverine and then seeing this RDJ announcement, and it was like, you know what? I've never been less excited for the MCU, because what you've just told me is our next few movies are basically like, hey, remember that movie you liked? Hey, remember that movie you liked? Hey, remember that movie you liked? And it's like, that's not, I don't care. Like, I don't care. And I do think they have put themselves in a position where it's like, you know what would have been a winning formula is kind of say like, hey, we're taking a pause on Avengers movies. So, our big phase breaks are going to be, hey, now the Fantastic Four is here. So each phase is a Fantastic Four movie, or each phase is an X-Men movie, or something like that. But both of you have expressed desires of what you would like to see. And I just have a feeling that Marvel's going to break our hearts. I think both have said different things, and it's like, I would temper your expectations.
DJ, here's the crazy thing.
Yeah.
Hector and I want two different things, I think, here. Or we think two different things are going to happen, but both him and I are excited for the future. You are not.
Yeah.
But I have a feeling that both, whatever they choose next, Hector and I are going to be on board with, and you are not. And that's interesting, because even though Hector and I want two different things, I am not married to any kind of outcome. So I don't have expectations that I'm going to be like, how dare you guys? In the way that I've been saying, I want reboot. And yet I love Deadpool and Wolverine because that was a great movie. Even though it's not what I would have made or what I wanted, I thought it was dope. And so I liked it because I liked it. But you, DJ, I think have so many ideas, and then they don't do anything close to what you're hoping for. And then you don't like it.
It's not even what I'm hoping for, because if you ask me what am I hoping for, I don't.
What are you hoping for?
I guess other than do what you did, just make the movie. I don't need a Fantastic Four in an alternate 1960s and all. Just make a Fantastic Four movie. And I feel like Marvel, because of the huge success they reached with Endgame, followed by a comparative Rocky Patch, because I think if you compared to any other movies, that's like, well, that's not really Rocky Patch, but you compared it like Endgame, perceived Rocky Patch. That now they're like, I guess we'll throw $100 million at RDJ, and I guess we'll bring back Hugh Jackman's Wolverine, and I guess we'll do all these, and they've lost the plot, they've lost the thread. It's like, all you need to do is make a Fantastic Four movie. Make an X-Men movie.
I love that it's in the 60s.
You don't need to do any of that. You don't need to do all of these hoops, all these hurdles. You're making obstacles for yourself.
But I also think you're wrong, DJ. And I think it goes back to the conversation we had about Pixar, where it's like we're telling Pixar, just make original movies.
Yeah.
But those are not being as successful as their sequels, because the sequels have their places in our hearts. And I loved Eternals, and I loved I really did, and I thought it was so different and cool.
I like Eternals too, by the way. I wouldn't say I loved it, but I did like it.
Yeah, and so I think that you're wrong, DJ, with like, it's not just as simple as Marvel, keep going.
Yeah.
Keep sticking to your plan, because they have for the past couple of years. And I think that it is difficult to ignore the internet saying, but we want Steve Rogers and Tony Stark again.
Yeah.
Because that's also what Roxy's saying to a degree. Roxy loves those characters and those actors and those stories, but to Roxy, Marvel is this. And to you and I, Marvel is something different. So when Roxy's like, you really think there's not going to be another actor playing Peter Parker in 100 years? That seems insane to her. But in my mind, I'm like, Marvel is this massive story engine. We can tell Peter Parker stories until we're done. And then there'll be Miles Morales stories. And then there'll be Gwen Stacy stories. And then there'll be Miguel O'Hara stories. And then there'll be Spider-Ham stories. And then there'll be... And I think you and I see Marvel as a different thing, where we're like, just do what the comics have basically been doing. The only difference, I think we talked about this last time, is that Marvel Comics is able to stay relatively frozen in time. In the real world, actors age and die. So Marvel Studios has to work with that, and they have to incorporate it into their stories, and their stories have to have hard set dates. But that doesn't mean that they are limited in creativity or execution of amazing characters that they also have not even gotten to a bunch of them yet. And if I think about, well, what if they do 3 Fantastic Four movies and then that's it? And in my brain, I'm like, as long as each of those 3 are bangers and do a great job of sort of summarizing 60, 70, 85 years of Fantastic Four comics, then I'm a happy camper. And if I want more Fantastic Four, then She-Hulk can be in a Fantastic Four movie that takes place years after that. And then you can do the next generation with T'Challa's son. Then you can do, I just see a lot of possibilities and potential that I don't have to keep going back to the same 6 white people that made up the first Avengers movie. I'm like, love those characters. We did it. We got a new Hawkeye, new Black Widow, new Iron Person, like new Hulk. We good.
You don't think the bringing RDJ back as Doom is a bellwether to like, we're definitely going to revisit those same 6 white people? That's definitely going to happen.
Now listen, if they're bringing back Scarlett Johansson for Secret Wars, fine.
Yeah.
That's great. She's around and she's a great actor and I love her character. But I don't think that they are going to do things that are basically going to undo their decade plus of storytelling, including undoing Avengers Endgame. Just for the fact of like, but we need that, familiarity with audience names, and we need them to be excited about Chris Evans and Scarlett Johansson. And I'm like, there's other stuff to do. They built this empire without Spider-Man or X-Men, which is already insane to think about. They built an empire that was so good and undeniable using B and C tier characters that Spider-Man and X-Men had no choice but to come to them. And before 2008, Spider-Man and X-Men were Marvel. And now people can't imagine Marvel without Captain America and Thor and Iron Man, which is crazy because before 2008, if you ask somebody Marvel and point to characters, they'd go Spider-Man, Hulk, Wolverine. It's just like it's shifted because of these movies and because they were original and they worked on these characters and they convinced us they're beautiful. And I think that if the writing is good, these movies are good, we will think Riri Williams is beautiful. We will continue to think Rhodey is beautiful. We'll continue, the Iron Man's daughter, Morgan Stark, she could have a movie in 10 years. We'll think that's a great character. And we won't miss this initial nostalgic pull that the MCU has been setting up just because those characters are iconic.
Roxy is going to say something, and I want to hear her say that. But I will say we still publish Peter Parker comics, and we still publish. We have trouble escaping the gravitational pull of
this isn't the best example, but we don't publish Captain Marvel comics. We just publish Carol Danvers. That's like the one major character that's been allowed to die and stay dead in Marvel Comics. Because this concept I'm talking about where they're like, but here's a successor and this character is interesting and let's just go there.
Yeah.
They did it in Marvel Comics a couple of times. Even the White Tiger character, Hector Ayala, is not active in Marvel Comics right now. That character's passed away. And then you have the daughter or the niece or whatever she was in relation to White Tiger.
Yeah.
So I'm saying it's possible, but you do have to like support it, stand behind it, do it. And it's not easy. And it would have been easier to recast T'Challa after Chadwick Boseman died. But I also think people would have been in an uproar. Yeah, it's like it's tough. It's tough, and I think that Marvel is strong enough of a brand that they don't have to rely on. But we need Spider-Man and Peter Parker because it's like, damn, dude, even the Marvel brand created another Spider-Man that is arguably now as well known as Peter Parker. I wouldn't have thought that could have happened.
I don't know that the Marvel brand is as confident in the Marvel brand now as it was then. But Roxy, what were you going to say?
Well, first of all, I am not comparing T'Challa to Iron Man or Cap. I think it's a completely different set of circumstances.
But I'm just saying, and I'm glad you clarified that, but I'm saying that there is still the internet that was like, but we needed T'Challa.
I hear you. I didn't feel that, right?
I agree. I was like, I disagree with you, internet. We can move on.
Oh.
But when you say, Hector, that we have told all of the Steve Rogers stories, I feel we've told one Steve Rogers story. I don't feel we've told all of Steve Rogers' stories. I feel like we told one story. There are different variations of different characters that I love to see. It's why I love that we've seen 3 different Peter Parkers, because I think you could argue at the end of the first run of Spider-Man, you've told all of Peter Parker's story, but you didn't tell all of Peter Parker's story. You told one of Peter Parker's stories. So then we got to see another version of Peter Parker's story. I love Amazing Spider-Man 2, so I'm on an island on that one, right? but then we get to see this new Peter Parker, and I loved his stories as well. So I, as somebody who's been a fan of all three Peter Parkers, as somebody who's switching camps, is a fan of every Batman that we've ever had.
Sure.
I don't believe we have told all the story.
The difference there is, those are great points. The difference there is that Spider-Man and Batman have been islands. They've been solo. And I think that if Tobey Maguire movies were in a world where, first of all, Spider-Man 3 was better. Let's use that as a hypothetical. Let's say all three of his movies were like beloved and solid. And he also in his movies was like, oh, the Avengers are down the street and this and this and this. And they started to build out the Marvel universe from that. We'd be having a different conversation. And Tobey might still be Spider-Man, an older Spider-Man, in his 40s Spider-Man, but you can tell that story. But I'm just saying that the first two Spider-Men in those specific examples had cases where it's like they had unsuccesses. And the movies afterwards tried to kind of address some of those. Each Batman movie has had successes, but also unsuccesses. And I think like Christopher Nolan obviously came in. If the George Clooney movie was solid, he wouldn't have been like, I have a new take. I have a new story to tell. If those stories were good, I just look at the three Captain America Steve Rogers movies and I go, what other Steve Rogers story is there left to risk recasting him, but then still having Anthony Mackie play Sam Wilson, who's maybe Cap, but then reverts to Falcon, but then the rest of the universe isn't recast.
Well,
and then Steve Rogers retiring, like
that's not what I suggested. I don't
the thing is
Steve Rogers right now.
Okay,
that is so not what I'm saying.
But you're saying the whole Marvel Cinematic Universe will stop and then everybody will start over, is what you're saying. You're not saying reboot and recast within the ongoing, still continuing Marvel Cinematic Universe. Then I think my question is, at some point, it's like, if you do decide, okay, we're going to stop, then you do look at the thing and you go, man, all these characters got to thrive and they had 3+ movies, but we're stopping and rebooting now when like these characters like didn't get there yet. And that's the tricky thing about Marvel.
Look at DC. Look what they just did.
I know, but the DCEU failed. And I don't think
Marvel is
not to the degree of the DCEU, not even close. Their Marvel's pillars have worked. The DCEU's pillars, Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, to varying degrees, didn't work. It's a completely different thing. I understand.
But we're going to beat it to the ground until it is failing to the point that the DC was?
Why are you assuming that Marvel Studios can only make bad movies going forward? What if they make great movies? There we go.
I think we're suggesting at some point
it's not a dead horse, so you can't beat it because it's not dead.
At any point, it's never going to die.
I mean, is the argument that you think, man, if these movies get bad enough, they should stop and reboot it, then that's like a hypothetical that hasn't happened yet.
Well, I'll throw this one in. I'll throw this in
there.
We're not.
You just saw Deadpool and Wolverine. We're not even close to being there.
I think the horse is showing some sniffles and showing some signs of age. I'll throw that one in there. I was like, maybe not dead yet, but it's not looking as healthy as it used to. Listen, gang, we ran super crazy long, and Hector's actively dying, so we need to.
Sorry for my cough.
No, you're good. We're worried about you. We're sorry. So, Hector, remind the kids at home where they can find you.
I'm on the internet on YouTube at Heroes Reforged. I had to think for a second. If anybody else wants to keep chatting about this stuff, hit me up. I don't know. It's I really appreciate the discussion. I really appreciate the thought exercises. I think ultimately to wrap up, I'm very optimistic. And even with Robert Downey Jr. coming back, I still, hearing Kevin Feige talk about it, I still am not cynically going, we're cooked, we're done. That's it. Throwing the towel, the horse is dead. Because I still believe in the rest of these characters. I believe in storytellers that haven't even been hired by Marvel yet. They're going to come in and do some beautiful shit. And I don't look back and go, that was the peak, man. That was it. I don't think so. I think you could make a movie better than Avengers Endgame. And it's my favorite MCU movie. And I still think it's possible to do that. I still hope Toy Story 5 is good. Maybe better than Toy Story 4. Who knows? Maybe not. But I also think that kids have such an exciting time ahead of them. And I know that Roxy's entire thing was about, you want to keep the story going. It's unfair because you're asking children to watch old movies and to care about old mythology. But I don't think that's the case. I think kids can jump in and have been jumping in at any point. I've seen people on the internet, young people go, what was your first MCU movie? Mine was Black Panther in theaters. And I'm like, that's insane. Okay, that's fine. That's how that works. So I don't think that the notion of them just sticking to this and not recasting Tony Stark or Steve Rogers is as bleak as we might think it to be. because I think there's a lot of untapped potential still left. And I think that the Marvel Cinematic Universe is different than a movie franchise. It's different. It's a different thing. They're different than a Batman movie series. It's different than maybe the DCU will catch up to what the MCU has been doing. Maybe not. Maybe James Gunn won't work, and they'll reboot and recast, and it'll be the same old. But I'm still holding out hope. I appreciate you guys having me on. Sorry we went so long.
No, not at all.
Thanks for being my friend.
Yeah, no. Love having you on. Love having this discussion. Roxy, where can the kids find what you're working on, and what final thoughts?
Everywhere at Roxy Stryer. My final thoughts is so funny. Every time we have Hector on, we have the same feelings.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also optimistic. I also think we have a really bright future. We just get there in such different ways, which is why the conversation is fun.
Yeah, and you can find me DJ Talks Trash. If you want to check out stuff on my personal channel, you can check that out. Also at DJ Talks Trash. I'm not optimistic. I'm just more looking forward to things that have nothing to do with the multiverse. Captain America: Brave New World, Thunderbolts.
And you know what? And I think we'll get to that. And I think that's another reason why they haven't pushed back these multiverse ending movies necessarily. I think Marvel Studios wants to get out of here too.
Yeah.
I think that's why the Russo brothers were like, we'll see you in a year.
Yeah.
Or we'll see you in 2 years with Avengers Doomsday, which is going to be in 2026.
Yeah.
Which is like, you got to schedule all those actors that are going to be in this movie, film it in the next 12 months. And then 12 months after that, visual effects are going to be working on it for it to come out in 2026. And then 2027, the year after that, is going to be, unless I'm getting the dates wrong, it's 2026, right? It's not next year. So. It's the year after.
Yeah.
Right.
Because next year's already locked in. They want to get in and out of this shit ASAP.
Yeah. Yes.
So,
I want new X-Men. I want the Fantastic Four to be able to hang out with characters. But anyway, I'm excited for the non-multiverse stuff personally. But anyway, DJ Talks Trash. You can follow this channel everywhere that matters at Only Stupid Answers, but on Twitter/X.
You ain't got the vowels from stupid.
And we will see you all next time. Bye, everybody.